I would like to go over exercise 19-5. It pertains to restricted stock units, and some of the executives have left the company. There has been turnover, so there's forfeitures. On January 1st, 2021, David Mess Communications granted restricted stock units representing $30 million shares of $1 par to executives subject to forfeiture if the employment is terminated within 3 years. After the recipients of the RSUs satisfy the vesting requirement, the company will distribute the shares. The common shares had a market price of $12 per share on the date of grant. At the date of grant, Mess anticipated that 6% of the recipients would leave the firm prior to vesting. On January 1, 2022, 5% of the RSUs are forfeited due to executive turnover. Mess chooses the option to account for forfeitures when they actually occur. Prepare the journal entry to record the compensation expense on December 31st, 2021. At January 1, 2021, the estimated value of the actual restricted stock units was $12. They granted $30 million. And they had to be vested after 3 years to exercise and receive the stock. So in this case, it would be the $360 million divided by 3, which is $120 million debited to compensation expense and paid in capital restricted stock credit of $120 million. Now, prepare the journal entry to record compensation expense on December 31st, 2022. Well, we know from the last sentence in the problem, on January 1st, 2022, 5% of the RSUs are forfeited due to executive turnover. So, how would we do that? We have to update the compensation expense as of 2022. So, if you take the original total compensation that should have been recognized without forfeitures, $360 million, and because there was 5% forfeited, you would take the $360 million times 0.95%. So the total compensation expense over the 3 years should be $342 million. Now, the turnover occurred in the second year. So in the second year, we have to recognize 2/3 of the compensation expense. So to do that, we would take the $342 million for the total compensation, multiply that by 2 and divide by 3. So the total compensation expense that has to be recognized at the end of year 2 is $228 million, less what we recognized in year 1 of $120 million. So year 2 expense should be $108 million. So we have compensation expense debited for $108 million and paid in capital restricted stock for $108 million. So you can see at the end of the year, we would have total compensation expense for the restricted units to equal the $228 million. So at the end of the third year, we should recognize the full amount of the $342 million that we calculated here, which is 95% of the total compensation, because 5% executive turnover. So we know we need 342 million in total. So if we've already recognized 228 million over the first 2 years, then our compensation expense would be $114 million, and we would have paid in capital credited for restricted stock of $114 million and a debit to compensation expense for $114 million.